Welcome back, everybody, to another book discussion with me, Elliot. If this is your first time here, I'm reading a book in every subgenre of every genre. While I'm currently recording this moment right now, we're still in a lockdown, so I figured it'll be a good time to explore some books in Project Gutenberg. If you don't know Project Gutenberg, it's this online library that hosts all these different books and literature that are currently in public domain. And one genre that contains a lot of public domain books is the philosophy genre. And so today I'm going to be exploring one of the subgenres of philosophy books, and that is Socratic Dialogue. And the book representing that today is Apology by Plato. If you don't know what Socratic Dialogue is, it's pretty much just a discussion about moral and philosophical problems. So the whole book itself, Apology, is really just dialogue. This is the first book by Plato that I've read. Apparently, Socrates is this recurring character that Plato has. He's kind of the protagonist of his stories. He plays this wise man. And Apology is a story of Socrates' trial. So if you know the life and death of Socrates, spoiler alert, he ends up getting executed. This is the story of him defending himself with Socratic dialogue. So Socrates is being convicted of two charges. First, for not believing in God, and second, for corrupting children. But what he's actually being punished for is because apparently people have found him to be really nosy for asking all these questions. So one of his first defense is that people tend to call him wise, but he doesn't see himself as wise because, you know, a famous Socrates quote, which I think kind of comes from Apology itself, is that the only thing he knows is that he knows nothing, which makes him wise, which makes him feel the need to keep asking these questions about everything. So whenever someone is so sure about something like religion, he kind of, you know, turns it against them and says, how can you be so sure of this? How can you be so certain of this thing that is you really don't know, right? So when you start asking all these questions about God and religion, and, you know, even coming from it in a way that it's like, I know nothing, I'm trying to learn about this stuff, people tend to get a little angry or annoyed by all these questions. And Socrates was annoying all these people, and they figured, we just need to get rid of him. Human beings, they have this certainty about them, and we have to tread lightly when we see that someone is so certain about something. It's like, we're not going to convince them otherwise, right? Even in current events, it's kind of shown that even with scientific proof of things, it's still so hard to convince people because they seem so certain to believe what they believe, even though it's completely crazy. So that's what Socrates is going through. He's not trying, he's just like, let's talk about reason here. Let's just figure out what we don't know, because all we know is what we don't know. And one of my favorite parts in the book is when he asks the accuser, well, if I am such a horrible person, can you give me an example of someone who is doing good to the world? And his accuser kind of hums and haws and tries to look for an answer, and he ends up saying, oh yeah, the law is good. But then Socrates is like, yeah, but the law is not a person. He's like, the government is good. And at this point, we're all like clearly on Socrates' side, because, hey, anybody who thinks that the government is truly doing good for the people is definitely not the person you want to be getting your philosophical wisdom from, in my opinion, and in Socrates too, of course. So that's the main plot of the story. It's just mainly dialogue between Socrates and his accusers and the judges. And what's great is this character that Plato kind of created. You can only assume that it's based off of the real Socrates, who was Plato's instructor, teacher, mentor. And so he probably took some characteristics from him. But one of my favorite things about this Socrates character is he keeps telling the audience not to interrupt him when he's talking. And I felt like that was just like, that's a fun little quirk to give a character. And the best part is that it's called Apology, which is just a play on the whole kind of crazy situation that Socrates was in, because he's clearly not apologizing. But in the end, it's a kind of a sad ending because Socrates ends up being sentenced to death. But he really is a good sport about this whole trial and everything, from at least from the text. He doesn't seem scared at all. He says things like, I wouldn't want to live if I can't be philosophical, and that death, if you think about it as sleep, is just one internal night, which I think is a nice way to look at it. Apology by Plato is a terrific book to dip your toe into philosophical literature. It's a really short one. It's really easy to read. It's written all like in dialogue. There's no like narrative or exposition. It's just without quotation marks either, but it's very easy to follow who is talking, which I think is a great feat in writing. And Plato has always been acknowledged as a great writer, in addition being a great philosopher. So I really recommend this book if you feel like getting philosophical. This is a really easy one to start. It's super short. Usually with this book review, book discussion thing that I do, I usually break it up into two parts. I give you my impression of it from the middle, and then my impression of it once I finish reading. But with this one, there was no reason to stop in the middle because it felt like 30 pages. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me know what you think of Apology by Plato, and if there's other philosophy books that you think I should read, please feel free to recommend them in the comments below. I will talk to you next time. Check out one of these videos. Keep being safe, being happy, and know that you know nothing.